We did get back from an 11-day trip, as I was sharing, and we often before you go on such a trip, you make sure everything's prepared and there's oil in your car and all the different things are at the right point. And the week before, the Sabbath that we left, I had preached a sermon both here and in Nevada, and I had remembered because you don't always remember everything you say, but there's some things that really stick out to you, and you wish you took it back the moment you say it. And one of the things that I had said was something about, because I was sharing the story about Banana Sam. I don't know if you remember about Banana Sam. And I had said something about, if something bad happens on any of your journeys, what are you going to do about it? And then when I was preaching, I was thinking, man, I hope I didn't jinx anything. Something bad's going to happen on this trip. But everything went really, really well. We were able to see old friends in Tennessee, and my cousin. Last time I'd seen her and her parents, my aunt and uncle, was when Ashley and I got married on our wedding day. So it had been about 8 years since I'd seen them, and so that was really good. And we were happy to be back here. We went to some evangelism meetings and different things, and so that was all very, very good. Every year, the North American Division, the NAD, is the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists, as well as the General Conference, the World Church. They put out statistics about baptisms and people who leave church, either by death or by dropping their membership and then maybe going to a different church, or transfers, all sorts of different things. And a lot of the times we get very excited when we hear big numbers, but sometimes we don't understand what those big numbers mean. And so some of the statistics, I'm not going to give you specific numbers, I'm going to give you more overviews so that it's easier for you to remember. Does anyone have any guess how many Seventh-day Adventists there are in the world, all over the world? Can you give any numbers? 6 billion? 6 billion, wow, that'll be, what was it, 8 billion in the world, and 6 billion are Seventh-day Adventists? That'll be pretty good. That'll be pretty good. We'll go lower, much lower.
3 million.
3 million? We'll go higher. We'll go higher. It's 22. It's 22. 22 million. 22 million, yeah. Do you know what percentage of that, actually I don't even know, what percentage of that is in the United States? It's really low. Most of that 22 million is outside the United States. It's in places like Africa, South America, and Asia. Most of those numbers, the church is growing rapidly in those places. The places that it's not growing very rapidly is Europe and the United States. In fact, what is happening is that people might get baptized, but they often don't stay within the Adventist church. And a big part of that is the methods that the Adventist church has used in the past. Now, sometimes when we hear the word evangelism, we have an idea that pops up, maybe even a picture, maybe an experience that pops up into our heads, right? Sometimes if you hear the word evangelism, you might think of a big meeting, right? So you call in a big time evangelist, right? And where they're going to talk about the mark of the beast, and they're going to talk about the beasts that come out of the ocean in the book of Revelation, and the statue in Daniel chapter 2, right? And Sunday laws and all those different kinds of things. Often that has caused a lot of grief and hurt within the church. You might think of handbills. Churches in the past have often, when they're doing an evangelistic series, they're going to send out handbills. Does anyone know what a handbill is? Anyone know what a handbill is? Yeah? It's usually it's a little bit bigger than your normal thing that you get in the mail. There'll be a picture of the evangelist on the back. There'll be a description of the meetings. It's going to go on for 4 weeks. And please come to every meeting of these 4 weeks meetings, and it's going to be a big picture of like Donald Trump in the front, and maybe Putin, and maybe an asteroid coming down, and a big fiery dragon. And usually that's what is depicted on the front, and people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to that. And they'll buy and send out 40, 50,000 of these, depending on the size of your community, and send them out. And send them to every door in the community, hoping that many will show up at the church. Do you know what is the percentage of handbills so if you send out 10,000 handbills, how many people usually come to your church? Not to be baptized, but just to come to the meeting. 1%? 1%? It's usually about one person per 10,000. One person per 10,000. But that's not baptisms. That's, I'm coming to visit. And they might leave on day 3. They might not come back on day 5 or 6. And so you can imagine if you sent out 20 or 30 and 3 people come in, and churches begin to feel discouraged because evangelism doesn't work here, because we sent a piece of paper to all the strangers in the community, and they did not show up to a strange building that they've never been to listen to a strange person they had never heard. Even if you were to get a big Adventist name, like Mark Finley, a Doug Batchelor, or someone else, most people in the community have no idea who that person is. They don't know who Doug Batchelor is. They don't know who Mark Finley is. They don't know who Dominic Allington is, right? So even if you were to think, if we just get a big name, they'll come. Probably not. Probably not. If I were to tell you a big name of the top archaeologists in the United States, would you be like, yes, let's go? I don't know the name. But if I told you, hey, listen, Mark Madsen is coming to Bartlesville, you need to be there. How many are like, yes, I want to go listen to Mark Madsen? Like, who's Mark? I don't know who that guy is. If I told you Josh Matthias is coming to town, he is the top realtor from Boonville, California, you need to hear what he has to say, would you come to town? I would stop everything to hear Josh Matthias speak. Every single thing. But why wouldn't you? You don't know him, and I do. I grew up with Josh, and he was one of my best friends in high school. So of course I would, but you don't, because you don't know him. I want to read to you a quote. This is from the book 12 People You Love by Roy Ice. He's an Adventist pastor. He is now the director of Adventist Today. Is Adventist Today? Or it might be a different group. I think it's Adventist Today. If I'm wrong, you can look his name up and you'll find the right one. He was my youth pastor growing up, and he is the uncle of one of my friends that got married. I was part of his wedding. But anyways, Roy Ice. This quote is from his book, The 12 People You Love, and the preference to this is that he is observing a church that's going through an evangelistic series, a typical regular evangelistic series, and this is his observation of the church members and what they are hoping to accomplish and do. And he says, Jesus has definitely commissioned these people to go and make attendees. Go and make what? Attendees. People who sit in the pews. They are a sincere people. They definitely love their God and thirst for heaven, but they seem most concerned about attendance. What are they most concerned about? Attendance. They want people to sit and listen to a sermon and to discuss Sabbath school lessons, and that is about it. Additionally, instead of word of mouth growth, they outsource their marketing. They mail flyers to people they don't know, inviting them to come to listen to a hired speaker they don't know, to talk about a God most of the church members don't really know. All the people who don't know each other come together for a couple of weeks until the speaker leaves. Some people stay, others leave. Who stays? It's difficult to tell. We never really knew them in the first place. Proper name for this might be stranger evangelism. I've been involved in stranger evangelism. I'm sure you have too. Stranger evangelism is easy. It's easy to do stranger evangelism. Have you heard of glow tracks? Glow tracks are great, wonderful things. They're great tools. But usually how they teach you to do glow tracks, and if you're not sure what they are, these little square pamphlets, and they're about different things. Maybe it's about the Sabbath or Day of the Dead or something else. And we're instructed to go and hand these to people. And they say, well, if you're too nervous to hand it to someone, like at a fair or, at the mall or something, or at a gas station, go to the bathroom and put it in the bathroom stall, or put it on the sink, or go to people's cars and put it in their windshield wiper, right? And this is evangelism, guys, putting information in people's car windows, putting on bathroom stalls, and they say, yes, I've done evangelism today. I've done witnessing today. I've done the Great Commission today. It's easy to do stranger evangelism because I don't have to know you. I don't have to come into your home. I don't have to eat with you. I don't have to smell you. I don't have to look at you. I can reach you without ever reaching you. Why is evangelism, sometimes churches will say evangelism will work in the United States. I've heard that in the Bible Belt, by the way. We're in the Bible Belt, and you have churches on every corner. And people say, well, evangelism just doesn't work here, Pastor. It doesn't work here. No, it does work. We're just using methods that don't work. They don't work. When I went to a hockey game in Tulsa, this is not recent, by the way. This is when I was living in the western part of Oklahoma. We were almost into the Panhandle, and we were out here in the Tulsa area for I can't remember what the event was, but this was before Amaya was born, and I told Ashley, hey, there's a hockey game going over at the BOK Center. Let's go, and we've never been to a hockey game. Let's go enjoy a hockey game. And so it was cheap. It was like a couple of dollars for a ticket. It was really cheap. And so we went over there, enjoyed the hockey game, and then we went the long drive home, like 4 or 5 hours home, and we had a great time. The next day, which was like a Monday, it was either a Sunday or a Monday, I can't remember. But the next day, I get a phone call, and they called me and they said, "Hey, we hope you really enjoyed the hockey game, and we'd love to invite you to another." And I live on the other side of the state, and I thought, this is really good evangelism, because they were reaching out to me to come back to another of their events, Often in churches, when people get baptized, people join the church, they often slip out. And so even if your local conference or your local division has great baptism numbers, our baptism numbers are the highest it's been in the last 10 years across the NAD. But that is good, but as long as the people that you reach remain in church. And now, one of the reasons why people will leave church, in fact, the number one reason people will leave church or will join a church, it's the same reason across the board. It's not theology. It's not, they have the truth, so I'm going to go to that church. In fact, we find that people are usually not searching for truth. A lot of us might be, but the vast majority of people are not searching for truth. It's not if they have the best worship experience, if they have the type of music that I connect with best. Not if they have the best potlucks. Not if they have a really capable pastor or speaker. In fact, the number one reason why people go to a church or they will leave a church is whether or not they find community, whether or not they have long-lasting, meaningful relationships. If they come to a church and they feel like they are not cared about, if they're never spoken to, they're going to be gone immediately. And the churches that really foster connection and community, people stay. Well, then the question is, then how can we accomplish that? How can we make people feel welcome and churches can grow and hear the gospel? Well, we need to strive away from being a church that's seeking to make attendees and to make disciples. If you have your Bible, we're going to be looking at two passages, one in Matthew and one in John. Matthew 28. Matthew 28. This is a passage. This is the Great Commission. This is one of the last things that Jesus tells his disciples before he ascends into heaven. Matthew chapter 28, verses 18, 19, and 20. Matthew 28, 18, 19, and 20. And it says, "And Jesus came near and said to them, 'All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have taught you. And lo, I will be with you always, even to the ends of the age.'" The call here is to make disciples, not church members, not Seventh-day Adventists, not Sabbath keepers, not people who are vegetarians, but to make disciples. To make disciples. Now notice a couple of things. Sometimes we believe that in order for people to join the church, they must know everything, right? They must know everything. And so you give them the Bible studies, and you take them through 28 fundamental beliefs. And you say, now that you know all the 28 fundamental beliefs, you can be baptized. But you know, that is not really a good thing, because one of the things that happens when we take someone through all the 28 fundamental beliefs and then we say, now you can be baptized, is we begin to treat baptism as a graduation instead of a birth or a rebirth. What happens when we treat it as a graduation? We feel like we've arrived, and this is the pinnacle of our existence. And now that I'm baptized, I'm done. But the reality is that Jesus, in fact, he gives us a method for making disciples. And first we make disciples, and then we teach them. And that the teaching should be ongoing, and that we should continue to instruct and teach those new in the faith. But often what happens, people get baptized, and the church is excited, a new person has joined church. Yes, this is exciting. And then that excitement wanes down, and they find that they are alone. And then they begin to wonder, is there anything here for me? Because there are already groups formed in church, already groups formed in church, and I feel like I don't have a place. And people start to leave. The method that Jesus uses is one of discipleship. And if we're called to make disciples and not attendees, one of the things we need to look at is, well, what does it mean to be a disciple? And how do we make disciples? In Jesus' ministry, he made disciples, and he put them to work immediately. It wasn't wait a year or two, just wait and sit in the chairs, sit in the pews for a little bit, and then you can be involved in ministry. No, Jesus sent them immediately. In fact, his disciples in Matthew chapter 12, you don't have to turn there, but you're welcome to. Matthew chapter 12, Jesus sends his disciples 2 by 2, and he tells them, you are going to heal, cast out demons, you are going to preach, you are going to heal the blind, and you're going to do all the things that you have seen me do, you're going to do. This is Matthew chapter 12. There's 28 chapters in the book of Matthew. This is early on, maybe you could argue almost halfway. And he sends them out to do all the things that Jesus did. In fact, one of the things of a disciple is that a disciple is striving to become like their rabbi, which is why when he ascended into heaven in the book of Acts, in Acts chapter 1 and onward, that the Pharisees and the religious leaders were thinking, oh, we did it. We got rid of Jesus. Our Jesus problem is gone. But what happened is that, yes, they got rid of one, but in his place, there were 12 more, right? With Matthias instead of Judas, there were 12 more. And so the role of a disciple is for us to become like our teacher and then go out and make more disciples. The whole thing is, if you wanted to be a disciple, you were not to remain a disciple forever. But one day you would take on the lessons and the teachings of your master and go and find other disciples. And so the teachings of your master would continue on from generation to generation, not through a list of 28 fundamental beliefs, but through the life of the disciple and the rabbi and his disciples. This is the goal of discipleship. And I'd like to share with you a quote this is from Dallas Willard. He is a Christian author from his book, The Great Omission. And he talks about what a disciple is in comparison to the modern day church. And he says, a disciple is a learner, a student, an apprentice, a practitioner, if only a beginner. He is one who practices what he believes. The New Testament literature, which must be allowed to define our terms, he's talking about the New Testament part of the Bible, if we are ever to get our bearing in the way with Christ, it makes this clear. And in that context, disciples of Jesus are people who do not just profess certain views as their own, but apply their growing understanding of life in the kingdom of heaven to every aspect of their life on earth. So what he's saying is that a disciple of Jesus is not simply who says, I believe in these beliefs, and that's it. And say, okay, well, as I know I'm a Christian, I know I'm a follower of Jesus because I believe in the Sabbath. Or I know I'm a follower of Jesus because I believe in the sanctuary message. Or I know I'm a follower of Jesus because I believe in the state of the dead. That's the beliefs don't define you as a disciple. They don't define you as a follower of Jesus. They are important, but they do not define you as a disciple. And then he says, well, what do? They use the beliefs. They use the fundamental beliefs to influence how they live and how they interact with others and how they bring others into the same experience that they know and love. This is what it means to be a disciple, to take someone with them and say, hey, this is what it means to believe in the state of the dead. This is what it means to believe in the sanctuary. This is what it means to believe in the Sabbath. He says this, continuing on. He says, in contrast, now he's going to talk about modern day Christians. In contrast, the governing assumption today among professing Christians is that we can be Christians forever and never become disciples. We can be Christians forever and never become disciples. A common thread through the churches I've had the privilege to pastor, to minister, and to serve is that there are many people who have been in church for decades and never brought someone to Jesus, never brought someone to baptism, never discipled a person. They've lived their whole Christian experience by going to church, participating in Sabbath school, and listening to a sermon and going home. And that is what church is all about. God has called us to be more than attendees, to be more than numbers on an attendance sheet. He has called us to something greater, and that is discipleship. One of the questions we have to ask when we think about discipleship is, how did Jesus disciple his disciples? Did he put them in a classroom and said, here are the different things you need to learn, what it means to be a follower of me, and once you finish, we'll give you a test, and if you get at least 80% of the test, then you are good to go, and I know that you know all the information, and the information has transferred from my brain into yours, and now you are ready to be a disciple. Is that how Jesus made his disciples? No, there was no classroom. The classroom was by the lake, and it was in people's homes, and it was on the mountainside. Jesus took his disciples when he healed. Remember the story when Jesus was stopped as he was walking, and Jairus comes and says, my daughter is dying. Can you come to my house and heal her? Jesus and his disciples, they come to the house, and they're mourning because this girl has died. And Jesus takes Peter, James, and John into the room with the parents, and he heals her so they can experience what it means to bring new life to a dead body. Jesus took his disciples with him as he healed and as he preached and as he cried with Mary and Martha when Lazarus had died. It was a holistic experience. He took them along and let them experience what it meant to be a rabbi. Because Jesus wasn't teaching them to be disciples. He was teaching them to be rabbis, to be teachers, so that they too could share with others about the wonder and the beauty of the gospel of the kingdom of God. Your calling to be a rabbi, to bring others into the experience of what God is like and what he wants to do in you and through you and to you. There is a quote from the Ministry of Healing, page 143. It's the most, I think it's the most quoted thing from Ellen White in the last 30 years, at least. And if you've been in Adventism for any amount of time, you probably know this quote. It says, "Christ's method alone will give true success in reaching the people. The Savior mingled with men as one who desired their good. He showed his sympathy for them, ministered to their needs, and won their confidence, and then he bade them come and follow me." Check out the personal touch that Jesus uses. He associates himself with people. He sat and ate with tax collectors, with sinners, with prostitutes and harlots, with people that no one wanted to hang around, right? What was in the book of Luke, what's that great accusation that the Pharisees make on Jesus? You sit with sinners and eat with them, right? You can't do both of those things. How could you do this? But Jesus, in order to reach people, he understood that he couldn't just send out a text message and they would be reached. He understood he couldn't just send out a flyer and people would be reached. He understood that he couldn't just send out the great controversy to every single home, and then those people would read it, this random book that showed up in their mailbox, and they would say, "Wow, I need to become a Seventh-day Adventist." Because it doesn't work that way. We have to go to people. We can't expect people to come to the church. We can't say, "Well, our church is open on Sabbath morning, and no one's coming to church. Evangelism doesn't work in Barsville, Oklahoma." No. The method that God and Jesus has showed us is that we must interact with people as one who's desiring their good. Sometimes when we interact with people, we treat them as a project. You ever done that? Treat someone as a project, and you're like, "I'm here to show you the truth. I'm here to tell you what's right," right? Jesus did not come to people treating them as a project. "You are my project that I'm going to give salvation to." No, but instead, he came in. And if you read the Gospels, what I love about how Jesus interacts with people is he uses a phrase, and it changes every now and then, but the phrase is basically this: "How may I serve you? How may I serve you?" Jesus comes to people's lives asking, "How can I help you? How can I assist you?" Not, "I am here with the truth of the world, and let me lay it on you." No, but instead he says, "How can I assist you? You have a problem. Can I help you?" He comes to the man whose legs don't work at the pool of Bethsaida, and he says, "What do you need?" And the man says, I want to walk." And Jesus assists him. He helps him. But there's a thing. You don't know what people's needs are unless you know the people. You don't know what people's needs are unless you know the people. And so one of the things that Jesus does is he goes and he mingles with people as one desiring their good. He shows them sympathy, not pity, but sympathy. He meets those needs, and after he has won their confidence, then he calls them to come and follow me. But often, one of the things that we want to do is we want to flip this upside down. We want to call everyone to baptism immediately. And then we want to say, "Okay, well, what are your needs now?" and all those things. We flip it upside down. But you know what is true about people is that the methods in the past that have worked don't always work in the present. You can't really knock on doors as much as you could in the past. You can't. It used to be you could just put up a big tent in the middle of town, and people would, back in the 1700s and 1800s, you could put up a big tent, and people would just flock and say, "I want to know what's going on in that big tent meeting." You can't do that anymore. People won't come to a big tent unless you're in a really tiny town, they might. But that usually doesn't work anymore. And the method that God has given us, it's hard. It's difficult because it's not difficult in the sense that it's challenging and not knowing what to say or what to do. The challenging is you have to give of yourself in order to do it. You have to give of yourself in order to do it. I believe that God has given you people in your life that are your responsibility. You have children, and those are your brothers and sisters. But you also have neighbors. Your neighbors are your responsibility. You might have coworkers. You might have people that you see on a regular basis. As you can tell, I probably need to get a haircut soon. And so I'm going to see the same person that I see every single month. And when I pull up to the barber shop, she knows my car. And so I can see through the window as she prepares my seat before I even get out of the car, because she knows that I'm going for her so she can cut my hair. There are people that we see on a regular basis. These are the people that God has given to you. That you could be the minister, the pastor in your neighborhood. You could be the minister of the gospel wherever you are, the people that God has placed in your life. Sometimes we think that God is calling us to reach strangers. The person you're in Walmart and there's a person ahead of you and they have two, carts because they live far from town and they're taking forever. You're just saying, man, that's not the person that God has called you to reach. If you were to knock, what are you expecting to happen? You go on their shoulder and say, hey, do you know Jesus? And they're like, yeah, I kind of do. Are you expecting them to say, hey, I want to come to your church today? It's probably not going to happen. Well, why? You have no connection with that person. But God has placed people in your life that you have many connections with. Those are the people you should connect with. Now, one of the scary things that we often have is, well, what do I say? I don't know how to interact. I don't know, sometimes people have this idea that there's a method to sharing the gospel. I want to share with you that I really believe that God is not calling you to share the mark of the beast with people. I don't think God is calling you to share that Sabbath should be on Saturday and not on Sunday. I really believe that God is calling you to pray for people and open up your life to the possibility that you can form a connection with a person. I want to encourage you. We have an evangelistic meeting series coming up in October, 2 weekends in October. I want to encourage you to start now and find 4 people. How many people? 4 people. It might sound like a lot, but I promise you, you know 4 people. You know 4 people. And what I want you to do is I want you to start praying for 4 people. It could be a neighbor. It could be someone that you always see as you walk. We have a church member who has to go to Claremore because they have grandkids who go to school there. They always walk on one of the parks over there. And they say, I always see the same person walking their dog every single time I go. And so maybe you have a normal place that you go and you see the same person over and over and over again. Maybe you have a family member that's close to you. Maybe there's a church member that you would like that, or someone who shows up at church but isn't quite baptized yet. I want you to pray about 4 people, and I don't want you to pray that God please be with them, because I think that is a terrible prayer. Because it's, what does that even mean? God be with them. It can mean many things, but it's not really helpful. If you told me, Pastor, I would like you to be with Ken, I don't know what that means. Do you want me to go to his house and sit with him? It could mean that. It could mean help him, but it's very generalized. So what I would like for you to pray is pray, Lord, please provide an opportunity for me to connect with such and such a person. So I want you to pray for that for at least a few weeks. And then what I want you to do is start to make connections with that person. So if it's when you see them while they're working, or if it's your neighbor, or if it's a family member, whatever it is, I want you to try to make a connection once a month with each of those people. Once a month, that seems like a lot. Well, it's really not, if you think about it. It means every week, connect with one person. So that could be a phone call. It could be, hey, let's go bowling together. It could be, hey, let's have dinner or lunch together. Connect with one person and do something. Talk to them. Send them a text message. Send them a letter. Do something with them. And what you're going to see, that as the months go on, that as you connect with these people, that you don't have to go and share your whole story. You don't have to go and share, what it means to be a Seventh-day Adventist. You're not there to make them a Seventh-day Adventist. You're there to make a friend. And when October comes along, it's going to be so easy to invite them to church. So if you were to invite them to church tomorrow or a few months from now, the answer would be no. Why? Church is a weird place to be. For people who have not been in church in a long time, it's a weird place to be. Because you sing songs that they have not heard before. There's parts of the service, do we stand, do we kneel, do we sit? I don't know. There's things that are just very, very strange. On top of that, some people have been really hurt by church. They've been hurt by pastors, they've been hurt by church members, elders, everyone in between. By words that have been said, words that have not been said. Lots of misconduct have happened in churches all over the United States. And so a lot of people are wary of showing up to church. But if you had made a strong connection with someone by every month doing one thing together for 6, 7, 8 months or so, and you came up to them and you're going on a walk, or you're eating, or you're doing a puzzle together, whatever you like to do, and you say, hey, I know I've talked about my church a little bit, but my church is having these meetings. I'm just really excited about them, and I think you would really enjoy them too. You want to come for just one of them and just sit with me. We'll sit together, and we'll just have a great time together. What is the likelihood that they're going to show up to a meeting like that instead of, here's something that pops up in your mail, you should go to this meeting with scary monsters on it? They're much more likely to respond positively to a friend than to a stranger who sends some strange mail into their mailbox. John chapter 15 and verse 16. In this chapter, Jesus is talking about discipleship. And discipleship is mentorship. It's partnership. And I want to share these words with you. He says, You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give to you. Friends, you're not alone in this journey. We're told that the Father is on our side. And that in the context of discipleship, in the context of making disciples and connecting with people and loving on people and meeting people's needs, that the Father is there to help you. And his Son, the one that is most closely connected with the Father than any other being in existence in the history of the universe, tells us that if you ask something of my Father, as you are making disciples, as you are connecting with people, as you are loving on people, he will grant you that request. Because why wouldn't he? Isn't that what God desires most? Is for people to know him and to experience his great love and compassion. Father in heaven, we know that you have called us to a great thing, that we are not called to just sit in chairs, but we are called to participate in the ministry of the kingdom of God. Father, that we could help people see and know that you are not a vindictive God. You are not an angry God who strikes down those who are disobedient with lightning, but you are the Father who opens up his arms as the lost children come home. And so, Father, we pray that there will be many opportunities for us to connect with people, and so that in October we can show them, we can share with them the great message of the gospel and of who you are. In Jesus' name.